Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I thought I would share some really fun flips that I came across this past week. I was shopping around at Ross and found a couple items that I imagined just a little bit different and I wanted to make them my own. So I'll be sharing those, the process, and how you can also do that with similar items you may have at home. If you haven't found me on Instagram, you can find me at Valerie Aguiar, where I share a lot of fun and behind the scenes of our day-to-days there too. So I was shopping around at Ross, which is kind of rare. Every now and then I will pop in and see if they have anything, and I always have pretty good luck at Ross. I came across these two light pendants. They were on clearance for $16.99, so I definitely had to snag one. When I bought it, I knew that I wouldn't use it as a pendant. I just don't really use light pendants that much, but I really wanted to try to utilize the lampshade and possibly the little wood block on the top with the little brass decorative thing right there on the top. So I knew that these were going for a lot. So to find it at Ross for 16 bucks, this is at CB2, and the same pendant is $3.29. Has a little bit different trim on the bottom. They have two different shapes on CB2. I will link it in the description in case you want to take a look, but I could definitely see the potential, and I knew that I had something at home that might just work with this pendant. So it was going to require a little bit of work and a little bit of vision. So my ideas for this lamp was I could do this two ways. I could keep the wood block on the top, or I could totally remove the wood block and just utilize the lampshade itself. There was a little bit of peeling right on the side, so I was gonna hot glue that kind of rattan back onto the side since it was kind of peeling off a bit, but an easy fix. And then I wasn't planning on using the electrical for this project. It was going to be mostly just the lampshade, but I didn't want to ruin the electrical just in case I was going to use it. So what I was planning on doing is turning this lamp pendant into a floor lamp utilizing the shade. So I had this floor lamp. It was from Amazon. I will link it below. I think it was about $40 or $50. We've had it for probably well over a year. It works really well. It's just very basic though. It's a great little lamp though, so I wanted to change up the shade and not really touch the electrical if I didn't have to. I wanted to make it as simple as possible. So like I said, I didn't want to just totally cut the electrical in the back just in case I wanted to utilize the pendant's electrical somehow or rewire it. So I wanted to utilize what I had and kind of save it. If you don't care about the pendant part, you could totally just do this on your own and just cut the electrical from the very back and pull it out and make it very, very simple. But of course I didn't do that. I took it apart piece by piece. Of course, you always want to have safety first, make sure that nothing is plugged in. So taking this apart was relatively easy. I just unscrewed several screws. There are some wires that are a little bit crossed in there, so you kind of have to untangle those. And then, yeah, just unscrewing things, pulling them apart. Definitely take a picture if you intend to put this back together, just so you remember. But it is relatively easy to get this thing taken apart. Once I got down to the very bottom, it was just a little bolt that was holding it so tight in there. So I had to grab a wrench. It's kind of difficult because it's such a narrow little space. So I ended up grabbing a wrench and loosening that bolt. And then you have to pull the bolt up over those little wires. And yeah, after that, it came off really easily. So like I said, it's a little tight in there because it's a very narrow space, but so at this point it was really easy to pull that wood block off, so I could just utilize the rattan lampshade if I wanted, or I wanted to incorporate the wood block, I could try to do that as well. So So this little white piece actually goes with the floor lamp, and this is what tightens the lampshade onto the floor lamp. So I took this and traced it onto that wood block, and I was gonna cut out a circle so that it could fit right onto that floor lamp, if that makes sense. I know it's hard to imagine. So now with that traced on there, I had at least a little guide of what I needed to kind of cut in the area that I needed to cut out so that I could slide that block onto the floor lamp. So I fitted my Hart 20-volt drill with a Forstner bit, and these will cut circles out in any type of wood or whatever. And the only problem with this was I only have 2 Forstners. I have kind of maybe one that's over an inch and then one that's for like doorknobs. And so I had no in between. So I ended up going with the larger one. So what I ended up doing was drilling too much out of that wood block. So it was too big. Hindsight, I would get the right tool. So that doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It totally would. I just did it wrong. So for this part of the lampshade, wire cutters just were not cutting it. So we ended up using tin snips, and I kept 3 of those small little pieces or prongs, whatever you want to call them, to kind of grip onto that floor lamp. Once I took the lampshade off of the floor lamp, it was very easy. Just this little white piece unscrewed, and then it let the lampshade loose. So I'm utilizing that little white piece and kind of sandwiching in the lampshade, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to screw that little white piece on, and it sandwiches those little brown prongs and tightens the lampshade on there perfectly. It gets a really good tight grip on there, and it worked perfectly. I did hot glue those pieces that were kind of falling off a bit. Super easy fix. And then the base itself was a little dirty and dusty. Like I said, we've had this for quite a while, so I definitely needed to clean it up, make it look new again, which was no problem at all. If you were going to try this project using this Amazon lamp, the only thing to be aware of is the base isn't crazy heavy. So if your pendant was a little bit heavier, it may kind of topple over. So you may want to rethink like weighing it down somehow on the opposite side. Ours was just perfect. If you really kind of like push it, it'll fall over. I'm not worried about it falling over. It's pretty secure. Now all that's left is to put in a light bulb and try it out. Like I said, I didn't touch the electrical at all in the floor lamp, so it made this project really, really easy. Of course, you could always rewire everything, but I wanted to keep it as simple as possible. Let there be light. It works. It is so cute, and I feel like the brown rattan, when it's on at night, it really has more of a warmer light, which I like. I feel like it's a nice little corner lamp, so it doesn't emit a ton of light, but it just makes a nice little kind of warm light in our corner, and I really love that. Adds a little bit of texture and some interest to our living room. It's really, really pretty. I'm so much happier with it than the other little basic floor lamp. And the second project is a very basic one. I found this huge basket again at Ross. It was originally priced at $60, which it is hard to see in the picture or in the video, but it is a rather substantial basket. So it was on clearance for $30. And like I said, it is a really nice size. I don't know if I've ever seen a basket this big in person, and I really liked those kind of little X's inside the basket. However, I feel like it's just a little bit too open, if you know what I mean. Sometimes baskets, they just don't really conceal anything if they're so open, the slats or whatever you want to call them. So I had a ton of this kind of flat reed. I used it for a DIY a long time ago, and I always just keep it in my craft box, but I have so much of it, so I thought I could totally just interweave this reed into the basket and make it look a little bit like something I would like a lot better, and still get to enjoy that substantial size of the basket that I really like. If you're not familiar with basket weaving, so you have to put your reed or whatever you're using, sometimes it's cane or rattan, in water, and you soak it so that it makes it more pliable. Once it's wet, it's really easy to work with and use, and then once it dries kind of harder, so it really helps to work with it when it is wet. So I just took a big kind of bucket type thing. I put a towel down because I was going to do this in my dining room, and like I said, once it is wet, it's a lot easier to work with. If you were to try to do this with the reed being dry, it would just completely crack. So how I would start this is I would just put part of the reed under and then count about 5 or 6 over, put it under, and then over again, and that would restart everything. So it's the same process over and over and over again. So like I said, you just put it under, count 5 or 6 over, and then under and over again. It's very, very simple. I would say the hardest part is kind of finding your groove. Maybe the first or second time around, you're kind of figuring out how to learn it, but after that it starts going really, really fast, and you just do the same motions over and over. So don't give up those first or second times around. You're kind of figuring out how to do it, but you will get it, and it is very, very simple. Another thing that I would make sure to do is after I would get a couple loops in, I would make sure that they're pulled really tight and kind of as flat as you can get them against the basket. You don't want them kind of loose and hanging up, because they may not last that long or they'll get pulled on things. So try to get them as tight as possible. And like I said, once you kind of get a little groove going, it starts going really fast. I worked on mine, I would say probably a total of 6 hours or so. I did have to go and like pick my kids up in between, so I would come home and work on it a little bit. So I got the majority of it done kind of at night once everybody was asleep. I just turned something on TV, kind of listened to it in the background, and it's one of those projects that it's the same thing over and over, so it's kind of just nice to kind of zen out, almost like crocheting or sewing, those types of things where it's just very zen-like. So here is a little progress shot, almost halfway done, just about halfway done. And you can see kind of the color variation. In the top, the reed has dried, so it is a more lighter type. And as you go to the bottom, it gets a little bit darker because that reed is still wet. So once it dries all the same color. If you find that some areas are not kind of the same width, like you can see right in the center there, there's a little bit of gap where there's no reed, you can just take an extra piece or two and then weave them in, and you will not notice the difference at all. It just kind of all weaves in together. So when you get 2 ends, I will link where I got the reed on Amazon. You get a ton of it, and it was just about $16, and they have different widths as well. This is the smallest width. I believe it was the 5/8 in the smoked color, and they also have 2 other sizes that are larger, and then they also have a more natural, lighter type style as well. So the pieces that were on the inside, I either cut them super short or hot glued them if they were not in very tight. But for the most part, everything stays really well, nice and tight, just because when we put the reed on, it was wet and now it's dry. So it relatively stays for the most part. Anything that's kind of loose, you can always hot glue from the inside, which worked well. Another idea I love for this so much is using it as a Christmas tree base or Christmas tree collar. It's so big. I love that idea, and I think it might just work perfect in a little tree in my bedroom. So I'm super excited to use that for winter. So if you guys enjoyed these DIYs, let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys got a little bit of inspiration today. And yeah, we'll catch you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching.